Here's the thing, Ilhan Omar and the Minnesota fraud. It's the state of Minnesota fraud. Over $1 billion. I believe that now they're talking about $2-3 billion in fraud. I believe the governor knew about this.
Yep.
I believe former VP Kamala Harris, when she was vetting Tim Walz, knew about this. And of course, I believe Ilhan Omar knew about this fraud. And Trump is cracking down on illegal Somalians. ICE has landed in Minneapolis, in Somaliland. People have been arrested. There has been calls for Ilhan to be deported, to be voted out of Congress. And so she has been making the news lately because she was one of Trump's adversaries, right? She was part of the squad.
Still is.
And I'm gonna play a little bit of this and get your reaction from it.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We have a lot to get to with you, but I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, though, that there was a failure by the Democratic state government to police itself? This is a brazen, fraudulent activity here.
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to in my letter that I'd sent to the Secretary of Ag, was to see where things were going wrong. How can this amount of money disappear fraudulently without there being alarms being set off? And it is something that, we have to continue to investigate. We have to continue to ask those questions.
Because, as you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman. And that was her way of making sure that this would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue the AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department in that lawsuit. It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these investigations continue and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
Well, it's going to have impact for your community because we've already heard the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link. He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges. And so I do know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from US tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we want those people prosecuted. And we want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen again.
So I want to pause it right there for a second, because in the beginning, when she made the comments, like, okay, now she's throwing in racism.
They always do. When in doubt, throw racism in there.
And she's waving, I'm black, I'm a Black American along with being an immigrant and stuff like that. And then I heard her say they knew about the COVID fraud some years back, but she did nothing. The more she's making it worse for herself.
Right. I mean, I also wonder, like, do you think that this would have even gotten media attention had not Trump and his administration been in office? I seriously doubt it. And then that's why there was a lot of pushback with DOGE, with them getting into all of these different agencies, these NGOs, and pulling up all this fraud, all this financial abuse, all these discrepancies, and the main ones that were pushing back on it were people like Ilhan Omar, the Democrats, right? Because they know that when you start peeling the onion back and pulling the covers off, a lot of this corruption that you see, a lot of these politicians in the White House, they got their hands in the cookie jar. They're the ones that's in these different corporations and companies, and there's a lot of kickback from this. So I think I remember reading a report just recently that in Minnesota there was an incentive, I think like $2,500 per Somalian that would get these types of benefits for these provisions in the state of Minnesota. So I think I recall reading that not that long ago, and so there lies a lot of the corruption as well too. And then if you think about it, people like Tim Walz and the others, they're not. The thing that frustrates me about the Democrats, though, Dane, is because now they have the majority of the House, they got the Senate, and they got the White House. But a lot of the stuff that we see that they can be held accountable for, you have these activist judges that will kind of like stonewall the judicial process and due process of holding these people accountable. There's no reason why people like Ilhan Omar should still be a representative. She should be recalled. She should lose her seat. So should Tim Walz. These people are corrupt, and all they're doing is making excuses and throwing racism out to deflect and to throw people off their scent.
Yeah, I was talking about that last week with the judge, and he broke it down. He said, listen, the only way for her to lose her seat, Congress as a collective have to come together, hold meetings, and vote her out. They're not going to do that. They just opened up the government a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So they're not going to, and when was the last time the House and the Senate was in session
Right.
to discuss this, right? And then their focus is probably they can't wait to go on recess on holiday to the actual fraud. And then the Democrats are scrambling to find, make up stories of the illegal migrants that's here, but they're not going to take the time out. Democrats are not going to take the time out, nor the Republicans. I would say this is a one thing that they are bipartisan is we don't got time to be discussing Ilhan Omar on whether she should be in Congress or not. And because midterms is next year, everybody is campaigning. Now, she's easily going to get voted, back into her seat because her district is 90% Somalian.
Somalian, yeah.
But that goes to show, the lack of work. Like, I don't care if you're and I'm a registered Republican, but I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. These Congress people, these politicians, they don't do anything. They need to
have term limits. Dana, we need to have term limits. Seriously, I mean, these people make more money than we do, and they're supposed to be serving us. These people are career politicians. I mean, worth millions of dollars. Doing what?
Right. Sitting on your ass, doing nothing, just complaining and pointing your fingers at the other person. So, let me play a little bit more of this clip.
So there are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you. In this extraordinary cabinet meeting, he said Somalis, quote, come from hell. They complain and they do nothing but bitch.
These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much, everybody.
That knocking is vehement agreement from his cabinet members there. I just wonder what the reaction is in your district to have that from the highest office in the land.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage. And we feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has with me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen to the president.
And 95% of the Somalis in your state are U.S. citizens.
Yes.
Just for clarity there. But the president has restricted all immigration processing, including asylum claims from Somalis already on U.S. soil, along with 18 other countries. ICE reports it has rounded up about 19 people, and they put out press releases with the images of about 5 of them that they say are the worst of the worst. Is that the entirety of the crackdown to date?
Yeah, so far we know of the people that they've picked up in Minnesota. About 5 of them are Somalis. And from what I have read and from the people that I've spoken to, all of them had already had orders of removal. So these are not people who are undocumented, but people who have committed crimes and who should have already been sent out of the country.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back. You know, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Congresswoman.
Yeah, so
You're trying to make my head hurt, Dana. You're trying to make my head hurt.
isn't Stephen Miller Jewish?
I want to say yeah, but notice the conflation, though. Notice the conflation. What does the 1930s and maybe even 20s immigration laws have? We know that they had a lot of racism during that time. It was, as a matter of fact, it was in your face. There was no question about that. But that's not the case now. You come over here legally, then you commit crimes, and then what they do, they want to throw out racism. I forgot the figure that was given in the interview. How many of these Somalians were convicted, or how many did they find that was stealing this type of that was committing this type of fraud?
I think it was 70.
70. Okay, out of 100, right?
70. Yeah, it's a
Pretty
whole.
high.
Yeah,
Almost a quarter. Yeah, three quarters of. Okay, so now again, these people are committing fraud, federal crime, right? What is she saying? She said earlier that she wrote to the Secretary of Ag. I would like to see that information, because they always talk about this stuff after the fact. I would like to see what type of action were you requesting and suggesting the administration to take in regards to this fraud and this abuse that was going on. I would seriously doubt if there was any, if at all. But notice they always talk about racism, because for a lot of white people, that throws them off. Oh no, I'm not racist. No, it's nothing to do about racism. The fact is, you're committing a crime. I don't care what color you are. You need to be deported. You need to be prosecuted. And if you're involved in it, you need to lose your job as well too. There needs to be some type of action going on and some type of consequence going on with these people when they do this stuff in your face. Because you know, and I both know that if it was Republicans doing this kind of crap, oh man, they'd be hanging high on the gallows.
right. Yeah, and and as far as, listen, we under Biden Harris, it was open border. See, people are forgetting that. It's a lot of MAGA people are forgetting that. A lot of Americans, period. But the Democrats want you to forget that. And they are saying Trump is a racist, Stephen Miller is a racist, his whole cabinet is racist, right? But you guys open the border. So what does that make you? If you're not racist because you want diversity, you are literally breaking the law and committing treason. You don't like America. You want to see America fall because we had open borders, no vetting. And then you was giving these illegals all types of resources, all types of tangibles and healthcare, everything. And then
for 4 years.
Yes, for 4 years. And then on top of that, you were so afraid of Doge, but come to find out, in just Minnesota, billions. And I'm sorry. Okay, at least Trump is going to do something, on a federal level.
Right.
Under Biden Harris, if you remember, Brett Favre, he committed fraud. I think it was in Mississippi.
Yeah, it was Mississippi. Yep, Mississippi.
Welfare fraud.
Welfare fraud. Yep.
For millions. It wasn't billions, but it's millions.
And he didn't need it. Let's get the record straight. He didn't need the money.
No, but he didn't get in trouble either.
No.
So where were the Democrats on that? See, their hands are dirty because that came out under the Biden administration.
Right.
So you're mad at this president for doing his job and his cabinet holding these criminals, responsible. And a lot of people come here, a lot of foreigners come here, and they don't assimilate.
Right.
I mean, they assimilate to the capitalism aspect of it.
Of course.
Just like it is known that they were sending money, they send money back to their countries. And in this case, people send the money back to Somalia, probably financing a lot of those pirate terrorists that try to hijack the ships. Some of that money was probably funding them. Now, and you in the military, there, when the United States went to Somalia, that Black Hawk Down, they allowed a pathway for Somalians to come here under refugee. I do not believe 90% of Somalians in Minnesota are citizens. I think a lot of them are residents. A lot of them are still have, they'll probably have a green card, but not full-blown citizenship.
Yeah.
Which means that could be redacted and they could be deported. So again, it is a mess. This corruption has been going on for years under Biden watch, under Obama, under Bush, and now Trump is taking action, and everybody is claiming.
I want to ask you this question though, too, Dana, because I've been wondering this: the stuff that we have seen that have occurred under Biden's administration. How come, or why is it that he has not been brought up under any type of charges for treason, with leaving the borders open? For lying about why the border cannot be closed, saying that we need congressional. We need a congressional oversight, or we need some type of congressional law. No, you don't. You didn't need that. That was again playing in your face. And so these types of things are, and from what I see, are treasonous offenses. And I'm just wondering, how come these people? I mean, they arrested Trump under bogus charges even after he became president and left office. They try to try him for having papers that he had presidential authority to have, but Biden had no presidential authority. He was a vice president, and he's taking papers and taking, you basically say receipts or documents that he had no authority to have as a vice president in his garage. Nothing happens. And I'm just like, why are we allowing, or why is our government allowing this type of corruption to happen in our face, and these people just get away with it scot-free?
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.